We've looked at the rigid structure of Scrum and the fluid freedom of Kanban. But what if your team falls into that frustrating middle ground? Maybe Scrum feels too restrictive because your priorities shift every 3 days, yet Kanban feels a bit too lawless for your stakeholders who are used to seeing a roadmap and a plan. Enter Scrumban. Originally conceived by Corey Lottis as a transitional framework to help teams move from Scrum to Kanban, it has evolved into a powerhouse methodology in its own right. It's the framework for teams who need the discipline of Scrum, but the as-it-happens speed of Kanban. Today, we're breaking down every gear in this hybrid engine and why it might just be your team's Goldilocks solution. So what exactly is Scrumban? At its core, Scrumban takes the prescriptive nature of Scrum and injects it with the flexibility of Kanban. Think of it as Scrum with the training wheels off. It removes the pressure of the fixed-length sprint but keeps the focus on high-priority delivery. Let's look at the DNA of a Scrumban team. Continuous flow. Unlike Scrum, where you work in 1 to 4 week blocks that reset, Scrumban doesn't have a stop and start. The motor is always running, and the team is always pulling. Work in progress. WIP limits. This is the secret sauce borrowed from Kanban. It prevents the team from multitasking themselves into a standstill by capping how many items can be in progress at once. On-demand planning. You don't have a calendar-based sprint planning every second Monday. Instead, you plan when the to-do list hits a specific low-water mark. It's just-in-time planning. Fluid roles. You can keep your Scrum Master and Product Owner, but in Scrumban, these roles often become more generalized. The team becomes less about following the role and more about owning the flow. Who is this for? Scrumban is the king of maintenance projects, help desks, or high-growth startups where a 2-week commitment is essentially an impossible promise to keep. How it works, the pull system and the trigger. In Scrum, we push work into a sprint based on what we think we can do. In Scrumban, we pull work based on actual capacity. Here is the step-by-step workflow that makes this happen. The visualization. You use a Scrumban board. It looks like a Scrum board, but behaves like a Kanban board. You have columns for backlog, ready, in progress, and done. The WIP limit guardrail. This is non-negotiable. If your doing column has a limit of 3, you cannot pull task number 4 from the backlog until one of the first 3 hits done. This forces the team to swarm on bottlenecks rather than starting new work that will just sit there. The planning trigger. Instead of a long meeting every Monday, you use a trigger point. Let's say your ready column, the stuff waiting to be started, has a trigger of 2. When the team finishes enough work that only 2 items are left in ready, it automatically triggers a planning session to pull new high-priority tasks from the product backlog. Bucket size estimation. While you can still use story points, Scrumban teams often move away from complex math. They focus on bucket sizing, small, medium, large. If it fits in the bucket, it gets pulled. If it's too big, it gets broken down right then and there. Why choose Scrumban? So why bother with this hybrid? Why not just stick to one or the other? Scrumban offers 3 massive strategic advantages that neither Scrum nor Kanban can offer alone. Drastic reduction in process waste. Think about all the hours spent in sprint planning for work that gets deprioritized or changed 3 days into the sprint. Scrumban eliminates that overhead by planning only when the team actually has the capacity to take on new work. Superior quality through focus. Because of WIP limits, team members aren't juggling 5 different tasks. Context switching is the documented enemy of quality. Scrumban kills context switching by making it physically impossible to take on too much. Evolution, not revolution. If your team is struggling with the rigidity of Scrum, you don't have to blow everything up and go full Kanban. Scrumban is a natural evolution. It allows you to keep the ceremonies that actually provide value, like the daily stand-up and retrospectives, while ditching the ones that feel like busy work. Ultimately, Scrumban isn't about being lazy with your process or avoiding commitment. It's about being hyper-adaptive. It's about recognizing that the best process is the one that actually helps your team ship quality software without burning out or being buried in unnecessary meetings. If you're finding this deep dive into Agile helpful, please hit that like button and subscribe.